welcome to Faith in Business. On this program, we speak with people in all facets of the business world from throughout Middle Tennessee to see how they share their faith in their businesses. As we all know, sharing our faith with friends can be challenging at times, but sharing in our business community can be far more challenging, sometimes even career adjusting, and yet extremely rewarding. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Steve Hayes. Steve is a Nashville area business executive who has worked for some very impressive corporations and eventually started his own business here in the Nashville area, all with faith, a love of God and family, and strong intestinal fortitude. Welcome to Faith in Business, Steve. We're glad to have you today.
Thanks, Ron. I'm humbled to be here.
Well, you have a tremendous story to share. I must say, as we spoke on the phone before this recording session, it was you just floored me with all that you've accomplished over a course of time, and seeing other people in business that may not have encompassed so much of their faith within their business as it was growing along. You just really captured me. So I want you to share that story of, first of all, who's Steve Hayes and your family and everything else, and then we can get into your business career.
Sure. Well, I'm blessed to almost 35 years of marriage to my wife, Adrienne. She's a saint putting up with me for that long. January will be 35 years for us. And we actually met on an awakening retreat in college.
Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you. But we're also blessed with 5 grown children, one of whom is married with 4 grandchildren. And our second one's getting married actually 3 weeks from tomorrow at the cathedral.
Oh boy.
So I'm very excited about that upcoming wedding. And then 3 additional, as I mentioned, total of 5 kids. So that's really, at the end of the day, from a family perspective, faith first, family is the second most important thing in my life. So very thankful for them.
Fantastic. And now you go to one of the parishes around town, right?
We're active members of Holy Family. Father Joe is my spiritual director. Our family helped start the Mission Honduras ministry about 14 years ago, and we've taken over 600 people from our diocese to Honduras to serve in Honduras over the last many years. It's been life-changing for all of my kids and for me and my wife and my mom. And so we went hoping to do good, and it turned out we realized that no, we're the ones that are being served, because they just open our eyes to people who really have nothing, but they have everything that matters.
That's great to hear. Our parish sends people to Haiti every year on a medical and dental mission, and other friends that I've known over the years who have gone on various different pilgrimages or however you look upon it, to go visit these foreign countries and help them build homes or whatever it might be. It's always a humbling experience to them. So congratulations and thanks for your effort.
We were blessed for doing it, because it opens our eyes to how blessed we are. What we take for granted: clean water and air conditioning and a roof over our heads. So we are very blessed to live where we live, for sure.
Well, and your business career is very monumental in my eyes, and for you to be able to do something like this, to go on to visit Honduras and to help people down there, in addition to what you do in your business every day, that's even makes it more remarkable. So how you got in business, and where are you from? I guess it'd be a good start.
Well, I guess I live in Brentwood now. We've been here for 20 years. This is our second time here, and I'll explain that later. But grew up in Connecticut, went to school in Louisiana, met my wife our junior year on a Catholic retreat. And we then subsequently moved 9 times in the next 15 years of marriage, with 5 children along the way.
Wow.
So my profession is human resources, and I was working for companies like Frito-Lay and PepsiCo and Russell Athletic, and career opportunities allowed us to keep move and grow. And our 7th move was Nashville, and that's when we got introduced to Holy Family and the Life Teen program, and just fell in love with the community. But then got recruited to Atlanta as the head of HR of Russell Athletic. And it was ultimately that move that opened eyes for me, especially, that we needed to stop the gypsy life for our kids and make a place home. And we felt called that Nashville is where we wanted to come back to. Holy Family is the parish we wanted to raise our kids in. And so, through God's grace, that's what prompted us coming back in
Hmm.
2000, and ultimately starting a business to allow us to stay here.
Yeah, it's quite a story, because I think you shared with me you out of college you wound up going to Minnesota. Was that it, or did I skip a state?
No, so right out of college, we were New Orleans, Houston, New Orleans, then New York, Orlando, Birmingham, Nashville, Atlanta, and then back to Nashville.
That is really phenomenal.
I'm
So,
not proud of that, in hindsight, because I mean, we prayed about each one of those moves and felt compelled to make them. But
mhm.
from my kids' perspective, it was a gypsy life. So I'm thankful that at the age of 35, through the mouth of our oldest, who was 11, God really opened our eyes. It was time to settle down, and we were fortunate to come back to Nashville.
And that's great. Now, you moved down from Nashville to Atlanta,
Mhm.
and I think there's some real success in what happened to you in Atlanta that gave you the opportunity to come back here.
Well, back to what I was just saying about this epiphany through my 11-year-old and a lot of prayer with my wife, we discerned that although I loved my job and my career and was flying around the country and the world with our CEO on the company plane, I was addicted to that, unfortunately, from
Yeah.
a pride and ego perspective. Um, but when I went to my CEO and said, "Hey, I'm going to resign and move my family back to Nashville," um, I didn't expect, but he tried to talk me out of it. And I really unpacked the impact spiritually to my family, that it was time to make a place home. He ultimately gave me his blessing, which was important to me, and suggested that we get the family settled and ultimately start the business, and he'd be our first client. So I was fortunate and blessed to have kind of a sugar daddy to help me take a risk with 5 kids to feed,
Hmm.
that I otherwise probably wouldn't have had the courage to take. And it gave me a chance to build a model that I wish I had when I was a customer. So here we are 20 years later. And that 11-year-old, by the way, who's our oldest, Matthew,
Uh-huh.
he's been working in the firm for the last 7 years. So I've been blessed to work alongside him. I never would have dreamed that not only would we come back to Nashville, made it home, but then
Hmm.
that would have led to starting a business that we're now able to work together in.
Oh, that's fantastic. What a treasure that is.
Yeah.
So now you get back here to Nashville, and it's like, okay, I've got this opportunity, and this is what I want to do.
Mhm.
Did you ever think of going into another industry, or just felt so solid in human resources that no, this is definitely it?
Well, actually, I did feel solid in human resources, and we started the company with that as a foundation. We do executive search and leadership consulting. That's our core business.
Hmm.
But we launched the business in December of 2000. And if you go back in history, 10 months later is when 9/11 happened.
Right.
And the economy shut down and stopped. And really, the last thing people were looking for was to hire a new startup consulting firm like mine. So I was fortunate to be given the opportunity to become the chief HR officer of a locally based global customer service focused company with about 50,000 employees around the world. So I became the chief HR officer of what
Hmm.
was then known as Client Logic. And they allowed me to keep the human capital group on the side as long as I didn't do anything that conflicted with them. So I pretty much put the business on side for a couple of years as the economy rebounded. Again, had kids to support,
Right.
and it really was God providing a bridge during an economic downturn. And I did that for about 2 years, and then came back full time in February of 2002 to the human capital group. I'm sorry, 2003,
Hmm.
and haven't looked back. So there was somewhat of a bridge of going back to corporate America for a brief period before things stabilized, and we've been 100% focused on serving clients through the firm that we started since then.
Well, and when you started the firm, it was lot different than a lot of other companies that would start up. Um, your faith in God, and um, just in seeing some of the things that you had shared with me, um, you know, if you can share some of that,
Sure.
because when you built, for instance, your website,
Mhm.
uh, it was very impressive website, and it's not just a Bible reading, it's multiple Bible readings, and that says a lot for me about you, and of course, then that talks about your company too.
Well, all it should tell you is I'm uh, greatly flawed and dependent on a merciful God to help me, hopefully do some good.
Hmm.
And so, in starting a business, there was a lot of fear of starting something from nothing. And I thought of the best leaders of all time and quickly realized that Christ is the best undisputed leader of all time. With over 2 billion followers, his name's still revered 2,000 years later. So that led me to realize there's only one business book that matters.
Right.
In order for our business to likely be successful, it would have to be because of principles that Christ gave us. So we poured into the Bible to try to find tenets, principles. We ultimately called them guiding principles to put bumper pads around us and guide what we do, and more importantly, how we do it. In our hope to try, and I emphasize hope and try to follow Christ, we put scripture around us. And it wasn't to preach or to proselytize, it was more to equip our customers, those we
Hmm.
interacted with, and our employees with the opportunity to hold us accountable if we're not following those tenets. So, yes, there's scripture in our mission statement. Yes, there's scripture in our guiding principles. And yes, our logo is a very intentional reflection on the crucified Christ and the risen Christ. But those are all symbolic to help keep us on the straight and narrow, because it's so easy in life and it's so easy in business, especially, to go off course. There's temptations everywhere. So we needed to be surrounded by, hopefully, anchors that would keep us from going off course.
Yeah, and it's so many companies, when they start off, they don't they have a mission statement, but there's not that much behind the mission statement. It's all something financial, uh,
Mm,
and I think, unfortunately, some companies really lose their footing when it comes to that, because they don't have the ultimate chairman of the board of directors behind them,
mm,
and obviously you guys did. So here you are, you started off the company, and it's gradually growing and such.
mm.
But the first 5 years, I think, were pretty challenging on Steve, weren't they?
Well, it's just me, working on the basement, basically, trying to grind it out and hopefully get some flight. And it was actually in the fifth year that my previous CEO, not the one I spoke about, but the one before him,
Hmm.
who I trusted, great Christian man, approached me about coming to work with me. And so that really started the trajectory of growing. And then more people came on, and um, so yeah, we were very blessed over the years. We had our ups and our downs, and we had good times and bad times, like every business, like every marriage, like every life. We all have good times and bad times.
Hmm.
But again, it's just relying on faith to help us through those storms, and then hopefully relying on faith to keep us humble during the great times too. Um, yeah, here we are, 20 years later, hard to believe, and um, yeah, just very very humbled and thankful.
Well, that's a great story. Now, obviously, I say obviously, and I shouldn't. Over those years, have you had a good opportunity to evangelize to your employees? And since that it was obvious on your website and such that there's these Bible readings in various locations. Um, did the customers look into that, and how did they take
Sure.
your respective Bible readings and such?
Well, first, to our employees, oftentimes the mission statement was an attractor. It was attracting
Mm,
an individual who wanted to work in an environment that was seeking to follow a better example. And we started virtually every meeting with prayer, and every meal together with prayer. So we were always invoking God to be present with us because we knew we couldn't serve our customers well, we couldn't serve each other well if we relied on our own strength
Mm-hmm.
and character. We needed His help. Um, Over time, too, we engaged outside groups to help drive accountability. So I, for the last 10, 11 years, have been a member of what's called the C12 group. And C
Hmm.
stands for Christ, and 12 is the 12 disciples. And it's 12 business owners and CEOs who come together one day a month for a full day to talk about biblically based ways of running a company and holding each other accountable for doing that. Also, we engaged the Best Christian Work Institute to survey our employees pretty much every other year for the most part. Um, we did that 2 or 3 times to get their anonymous feedback on our culture and what we did well and didn't do well. And it was very insightful and sometimes very hard to get that feedback, but that then gave us a chance to improve and get better. Um, so, a variety of ways that we tried to make sure that our team members, had a voice because without them, we're worthless.
Mm-hmm. Right. So C12, is that a local group?
It's a global group, and I'm now on the board globally of C12, but I'm still an active member. I go to my group at the third Thursday of every month, and
Uh-huh.
there are about 8 groups in Middle Tennessee, and it's just, I would say, the single best personal, professional, and spiritual investment I've made as a business owner. Um, because it's hard running a business on your own. There's so many things you don't know, and the beauty
Mm-hmm.
of this is I had iron sharpening iron colleagues running different businesses, and if you're facing a challenge or a struggle or an issue, you've got 11 other people to help brainstorm and bounce ideas off of, and share their mistakes and their lessons or their contacts. So yeah, for anybody who's trying to run a business on their own, I would encourage you to go to c12group.com and learn more about it.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I'd never heard of that. And that's
Mhm.
I do know that you were also uh, one of the founders, if I'm correct, of the Catholic Business League here in Nashville.
Yes, Greg Mays, who really was given the inspiration to start it, asked me to be a founding board member, and so it's great to see that 10 years later that it's still active and thriving and growing, and has changed leadership hands multiple times, which really shows that the Lord's blessing is on it from a succession perspective.
Um, are there any true faith experiences that reach out and grab you that you could share with us over the last 20 plus years, or maybe even before that, before you started your own business?
True faith experience. Oh my gosh, there's many. I've been fortunate to go to Bethany. It's the retreat center about an hour and a half west of Nashville
Hmm.
for a annual silent retreat. Um, it's a 3.5 day silent retreat where you're pretty much silent for 23 hours and you have 1 hour of spiritual direction. Um, that has been just a huge blessing for me, is to go and be still and be quiet and listen, be out in nature,
Hmm.
turn everything off for the most part. So I would say that's one of the biggest. And then the other is just the blessings of going to Honduras and watching people's eyes and hearts be transformed by getting outside of the bubble. In the United States, we live in a bubble. And
Right.
let's say in this area of the country, we live in a bubble within a bubble. And so watching God just melt hearts
Yeah.
of all ages, by getting out of our comfort zone, getting out of where we live, and then our eyes and hearts are transformed, and we come back, and then this is our mission field right here.
Hmm.
But you really can't see it in a movie or read it in a book. You have to go experience it. So those are the couple that I would say, and then the birth of our 4 grandchildren, and so
Hmm.
yeah, many many things to be thankful for.
Well, you mentioned this. It was 23 hours of silence
Hmm.
over that. And when you're running a company, um, there's always a zillion things going through your mind.
Hmm.
Um, how how were you able to wind down enough, you know, to to get into those 23 hours? I mean,
Well, you do have a spiritual director. In my case, Father Joe, who is my
Hmm.
spiritual director. So that he's a big piece of helping to set straight. And there's accountability. So every day over those 3.5 days, you come back for an hour, and there's a lot of questioning. How'd you use these 23 hours, and what'd you get
Hmm.
from them? So, uh, but I have to admit, as a business owner, I didn't shut everything off. I would check in my emails once or twice a day just to see if there was a crisis I need to intervene with. But for the most part, was able to tune most of it out. And it was in times like this where I was able to discern some big decisions that we were presented with, and just actually about 2 years ago, we were approached by a Fortune 500 company who had heard about us. Their customers are our customers, and they knocked on our door to see if we would possibly want to become part of their larger company. So
Hmm.
the retreat was great to help me and then me and my wife discern about this, I would say, Red Sea parting opportunity that was presented to us.
Hmm.
And ultimately, after 5 months of discernment and going back and forth, we did feel intense peace. And so our company was acquired by the Gallagher Corporation in September of 2019. And I'm still shepherding it and running it on their behalf. But that was a big piece of discernment that wouldn't have likely happened if I hadn't had the silent retreat. So,
Hmm.
the world is pulling at us in so many directions. I would encourage everybody to give yourself the gift of silence every morning. And Jesus role modeled that. He often went off and had quiet time with the Father. So find what's best for you, whether it's setting your alarm 10 or 15 minutes before or 30 minutes before, whatever works for you. It's the best gift you can give yourself and your family and your employees if you give that first, time to Him. So.
Have there been any super challenging times that you just sit back and say, "Wow, I wasn't expecting that."
Sure, several. I guess one that really comes to mind is 2015. Um, I was serving on a Honduras board, running 4 schools with 1,000 students and 100 employees in Honduras,
Oh my
plus running my
gosh.
business and serving on a couple other boards. And I really took my eye off my business.
Hmm.
I was saying yes to everything and kind of lost sight. And the phrase I would coin is, if there's no margin, there's no mission. So I lost focus on that. I was so focused on mission that I lost sight of the margin, and that put my employees somewhat at risk. So
Hmm.
through my C12 group, they helped intervene and helped me get back on track, and my employees did as well. And I had to say no to several things and peel out some things from my life so I could get focused again. So I mean, there's times for all of us to fall down on our knees and get scraped and get back up. Thankfully, Jesus is always there to pick us back up. And I was surrounded by great people at work and at home and through C12 that helped me get back on course. And that ultimately led to, us being acquired, and which was a very positive thing. So.
That's great. Um, the is there anything specific, Steve, that for I would just say even an employee as
Mhm.
well as a business owner to if they have not really integrated God into their company, anything that you would suggest to them on how they could, whether they're just employees or if they own their own company.
Well, first it starts here. It
Hmm.
starts with us. There's a great quote from St. Francis, which is, preach the gospel at all times, if necessary, use words. So it
Yeah.
starts there. And I think if we try to internalize our faith and our surrendering and dependence on Christ for our strength, and people will start seeing that and they'll start asking. But also, don't be ashamed to plant seeds. If someone shares that they're struggling with something, say, hey, I'm praying for you.
Hmm.
Or I hope you have a blessed weekend. Or, you know, whatever way you feel comfortable planting seeds of hope, of encouragement, that's going to just draw more people likely to you, because that's the antithesis of what media and what the world is putting in front of us. We all want hope. We all
Hmm.
want love. We all want faith, in something. And so you could be that Bible that no one reads just by your life. But it does require us to get in the Bible ourselves. As
Right.
Catholics, we often just go to Mass and we're done. And we're missing such a gift of not opening the Bible ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
really trying to digest the so many blessings that are communicated to us. It's like a love story. Some of it I know is hard to understand, but the more time you spend in it, the more you realize that His mercies never end. He's always with us. And once you start really grabbing that, it's hard not to share it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, I must share this in Steve's office. He has a saying from Deuteronomy. I think it's chapter 4, verse 9. Be very careful never to forget what you have seen God doing for you.
mm,
That's a very moving Bible verse.
mm.
And I think obviously you live exactly, along those lines.
I'm trying to.
Yeah. Well, it's challenging for us all. And
Yeah.
I think way too many of us just go to Mass and think, oh, I've taken care of Jesus this week,
Mhm.
but I haven't really taken care of me
Yeah.
and Jesus.
Yeah.
Well,
He's
I
the
want to
best.
thank
He's the
Steve.
best friend that we'll ever have. So.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, thanks so much for sharing the story with us today. It's a remarkable story of how faith led you to your business and how you've honored God throughout the business's formation and the existence of your company. Please join us next week when Faith in Business will take a journey with another person in business who will also share how they keep Christ centered in their career as well as in their home life. My name's Ron Fleitz. Steve and I both thank you for sharing your precious time with us today. Faith in Business is made possible through the generous donations of our listeners and sponsors and the Diocese of Nashville. Shining the light of our Catholic faith in everyday life, this is Nashville Catholic Radio, 100.5 FM, and streaming at nashvillecr.com.